Welcome to another edition of Frontiers right here on Timveni television. With me is Elena Kamaliza. This is the program that we discuss pertinent issues affecting our country, more especially affecting the youth. As we know, the youth are the largest population of Malawi. In today's program, we are discussing on how we can end poverty. Poverty is quite a broad topic, but according to the United Nations Commission on Trade and Development, it indicates that 71% of Malawians are living in poverty, and according to statistics, it is people who are living on less than $1.90 a day, which is roughly around 1,300 kwacha. But if you look at the cost of living, it's quite very high for us to access even very basic social services. It's quite costly and expensive. Even though the government has tried to put in so much resources in the health and education sector as priority areas, it's still quite tough for most Malawians to make it through. So in this program, I'm joined by Karen Chinkwita Phiri, who is Executive Director for the Jubilee Enterprise, just to share a little more on how we can do as a country to end poverty. Welcome, Karen.
Thanks, Selena.
So to set the ball rolling, you've been in this industry for quite some time. Yeah. What is causing poverty?
I guess I did happen just end up being a social change activist. We're really just trying to get people to do more than think about the less. I think there's a lot of focus on poverty more than wealth creation. So it's combating poverty, relieving poverty. When we come to what is poverty, you just explain something from UNCTAD about what their definition of poverty is, which is 1,300 kwacha, I guess, a day. You know, I can survive on 1,300 kwacha a day. You can take me to work and back and buy lunch. But the question is, what is poverty? Because what the West sees as poverty is not always poverty to us. There are things that bother us as Malawians that we would prefer that may not necessarily be in a definition by the United Nations. So I would say the first step to ending poverty is to define what a better situation looks for us. In an opportunity last year to travel to Cape Town and see the social enterprises that were there as part of the Social Enterprise Academy, which is something we're doing last year and this year. I'm the chief executive officer there and we'll be running it for 3 years. What I did see was the first thing that we spoke about when we talked about the end mission of Jubilee Enterprise, which is to build economic building blocks in the next 50 years. They were like, okay, so what are you combating? What are your indicators? We're like, well, we would use, what do we call that? The gross domestic product as our indicator that we've actually made change in the community. And they all laughed. They're like, that's somebody else's indicator. What is your indicator? So Malawi, we don't have our own indicators that we have set up. I came across a great tool called the Poverty Stoplight, which wasn't set in numbers or in graphs. It was basically, what is a person's quality of life? Are you happy when you wake up in the morning? Are you comfortable with your government, the way MRI works for you? How many of you are sharing that at home? How many of you are in a minibus? What is your quality of life? So the Poverty Stoplight indicator has over 50 indicators for a person to be comfortable with their life, which I think is a much closer indicator to what we want as Malawians. We want to be comfortable. It's great to be filthy rich and build houses in Area 43, but you don't need houses in Area 43 to be comfortable. You need to be able to eat, have a house over your head, have some food, good health care. So I would say the first step would be, what's our end goal? What is the vision we want to see for Malawi? What are our indicators that poverty has actually been reduced? So how to end poverty is to have a vision of where we want to be. What does wealth look like for Malawi?
So you've just spoken of us having that vision on where we want to be. Do you think, okay, in Malawi, we rely so much on the government to give us guidelines on how best maybe our country can develop. Do we have enough of that?
As you see here, I actually had this discussion at my office before I came here. Being a great executive director,
thank you for
I took everybody's ideas, so just give me a second.
No problem.
All right. When we come to the government, assume we had no government. What would we do? It's just this idea of that there is one institution out there, there is one donor, there is one rich person, there's one uncle that I'm going to go to in my life will be okay. Kulibe. Okay.
Yeah, true. Right, straight on point.
They are great governments. They're good governments. There's no perfect government. If you went to every country's got an issue with their government. There's something that they don't like. We may just have more issues than others. But I would say the first mentality is, what can I do for myself, for my community?
Before thinking of the government.
The thought that government will come in and fix everything is a wrong mental attitude. It is bad. Like you would tell a 2-year-old, that is bad. Don't do that. Don't think.
So we should tell it to ourselves now.
That is bad. That's like with our sugar and stuff. That's bad.
Yeah.
So the first attitude is that I am the right person to change my life and my community's life. It would be great if government can come in and support that. But if they don't, it is not the end of the world. Because there are two things that are happening at the same time. It is easy to blame the thing that is easy to point a finger at. You might have said something to me that made me upset, and I could blame you for that. I could point it at you. But it's up to me on how I'll react to what you said. So it's up to us to react to what our government does. The response lies with us. If the government is not in a place, if it doesn't have the leadership capacity to cast the vision it needs to cast, then we need to stand up and cast that vision. It points the finger right back at us. What are we doing if the government is so bad? Who are we then? So I would say government, yes, plenty of problems, but we've known this for like 15 to 20 years
it's
now.
time for us to take the
So kind of time to do something else.
Good point there, Karen.
So,
So next I'd just like to know from Jubilee Enterprise, just shed more light on what social enterprise can help us in, especially on ending poverty.
A social enterprise is basically an organization or a business that is pro-community, that is pro-developing people or pro-environment. So you find that it's not like CSR, where Airtel will make like 1 billion kwacha, and then it would take like 1 million kwacha and start like a football league. That is corporate social responsibility. But from the very first time an institution is built, we know that we want to help women. That is our social aim. So how do we help these women, perhaps HIV positive or they're single moms? Okay, what's easy to grow here? Tomatoes. So let us grow tomatoes. Everybody sells tomato. 1,000. Maybe let's add a value. Let's put them in jars. Oh, that looks great. Call ourselves Quick to Kitchen. That's a local example of a social enterprise. So you already have that at your core. The social aim is your core. Others, it's environment, like Kawandama Hills that make sustainable charcoal. They thought, what can we do to help out? What could be our environmental cause? So when they process their blue gum trees to get essential oils, they use the leftover limbs and branches to make charcoal. So that way they don't cut down
so many trees
and they only use trees that were planted for a commercial purpose. So please buy sustainable charcoal. Tanya's a great friend and she's got a great reason and she always works with locals. But Quick to Kitchen is totally Malawian owned social enterprise. So social enterprise is not necessarily going to end poverty, but it will change the way we do business and we do social change to kind of attack poverty. Like
it's another step.
Like the Americans would say, the attack on poverty has begun. Yes. So social enterprising helps individuals to work with communities or with a target group they want to change for social good and be able to make their own income, so they don't always need donors for them to make that change. Because it comes up, there is a question that you shared with me earlier when we got these, that how's donor aid really helping? There was a talk on TEDx, it's not an original thought, that trade, not aid, that if aid was helping Africa, it would have helped Africa. There's no need to wait. We don't need consultants from Switzerland to balance the numbers. If aid was helping, it would help. But if trade was helping, it would also help. So there is a balance yet to be achieved that a social enterprise comes with. To be fair, Gamba business, but our systems are rigid, money doesn't flow fast enough, and the people we want to sell to have got issues.
hold it there. We're talking to Karen Chinkwita Phiri. She's the Executive Director for the Jubilee Enterprise, a social enterprise, one of the young people in the country trying to bring the change that we so much need. She is so assertive, as we've seen from our discussion. When we come back from the break, she'll continue sharing on how social enterprises can be set up and how best as young people we can take this opportunity to change our stories. Welcome back to Frontiers right here on Timveni television. Today we are discussing the the topic on how we can end poverty. I'm talking to Karen Chinkwita Phiri, who is Executive Director for the Jubilee Enterprise. As we continue, Karen, you've spoken about social enterprises. These are businesses that in turn are helping communities. But in terms of taxes, are these being well accommodated?
Of course not. It's MRO talking about the government does need tax to operate. You know the popular saying, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. First to God what belongs to God. I hope we all tithe out. There's a discussion, maybe a topic for another day. The idea is that tax is not a bad thing. It's just maybe it's been misused in the past few years. But tax needs to happen. The question is, what tax needs to go to a social enterprise? That assumes that the social enterprise is a legal entity recognized by the Malawi government, which is no. And it's not because Malawi is backward, someone's probably out there going, Malawi. No, it's not that. It's because it is a new thing across the world. Social enterprising is a movement. It's a different way of thinking. So the idea is to start conversations on having other categories that accommodate social enterprising. So what we would encourage is for more tweets, more Facebook posts out there about how great it would be to have social enterprising as a new category in our Assistant Registrar General's, Registrar General's office. So the idea is that as with the Social Enterprise Academy and with other members that are interested, we will be approaching the right bodies to talk about that becoming a legal entity and what kind of tax would be on that legal entity. No, there wouldn't be one, that there'll be the right tax for that. So it accommodates it as a social activity and also as a business activity because money is being made. It's just not being taken into somebody's pocket. It's going back into the activities of the organization.
Empowering the communities.
So yes, it's implying it's a premature conversation, but it's one that is supposed to come up, and we will invite Timveni as we become more public about that conversation. Until then, we don't want to scare the taxman. It's his job. It's just
he has to do his job.
Where is he going to do his job? Yes.
All right. So in terms of maybe you've reached out to so many people through Jubilee Enterprise, what has been the response like?
So far, we are recognized locally as a youth organization that is active and that is very involved in wanting to change the face of the economy as we see it. And you did say something before the break about being the change we want to see in the world. Mahatma Gandhi is a favorite. I love his quotes. Both on Christianity and being a change leader. That change must come from within, not basically from without. It's great if circumstances can change you, but it's greater if it starts from within, if it starts from your heart. That we should realize that it's not going to be something from without that is going to change us. It's going to be us accepting that this is our country. This is probably where we're going to live and die. It's probably where we're going to eat and go to work. So, hey, sweep your front yard. This is where you live. So, yes, we are glad to be part of the many other organizations, especially youth organizations that are involved in creating a change. You could list them. Some of them just made the top list 2 days ago. MHub, Maestros Leadership, their hub, the Blantyre hubs. There are a lot of organizations doing what they're supposed to be doing. And perhaps totally implying as well, in the future, there will be an ecosystem that people can access online to see the organizations that are doing change in Malawi. Because we're just one side of it, and we hope we're doing our side very well.
From your own point of view, or from Jubilee Enterprise, like you said, there's so many other organizations that are working towards bringing this change. If you can rate us, maybe in the next 20 years, if we, the youth, can embrace this change, where do you see Malawi?
I have a vision for Malawi that is probably ridiculous and a bit stupid.
Say dream big, girls.
I'm very optimistic. I wake up every day and I see a country where we have the most calm, most deep thinking people, probably in Africa. Probably that's why we've never actually gone to war. It's not because we're weak. We're just way too deep for that.
We have the patience.
We have patience. Honestly, I see Malawi as I see Switzerland. We're neutral, we're calm. We have just not yet discovered our strengths as Switzerland has. Malawi has always been an agro-based economy, but when development comes in, they always try to develop many other things. Why isn't technology helping agriculture? Why aren't the youth finding markets for agriculture? Why aren't we adding value? Why don't we go from farming straight to digital? Why don't we go from farming to industrialization to export, export to digital marketing, now that we've got products on the market? There's a whole value chain missing here that the youth can easily fit into. There's a train track running from here to Zambia that doesn't have products. There have been all these calls from the African Development Bank. There are many rural communities where educated people are not there, helping them organize themselves for trade. So my vision of a more organized Malawi is that we have systems that talk to one another and develop a central product. That we are farmers, we are calm, we are diplomatic. We are people that were supposed to merge into a country that could hold the southern hub together. Malawi has got a great army, it's got great people, it's got great inventors. If I could go several years back and tell you what Malawian youth have done on the globe, you would cry. But our media doesn't say these things. The message out there is that we are poor, we are helpless, we are underprivileged. If I'm Malawi basis, it's a taker, you know?
High mortality rates and everything like that.
Why do we always focus on the negatives? We have done so much for Africa, for ourselves, and for the world. Why do we always point at the bad things about ourselves? If you told me all the things you were bad at, and then you came the next day at my office and asked me for a job, would I give you one?
I know you would.
So we must start marketing ourselves the right way. So when we go for trade partnerships, people understand that we have potential. There is no country in the world that doesn't have its problems. And perhaps we're lower in the scale these past few years. But 3-4 years ago, during the first DPP era, we were number 3 on Forbes as the most likable country to go live in and actually have a life. How do you go from being number 3 on Forbes, being number 50 on the UN list, or whatever, the World Bank list that is? It's possible to get back there. Maybe even past number 3 to number 1. It's just been 15 to 20 years of democracy. It's about time we understood there is no one big institution, no one big president, no perfect guy, perfect institution who's going to come and fix it. No donor, no Chinese, no Britons. It's us. So we better start looking at each other. We better start getting along. This aid that is coming in, it's not going to be here forever. That is one of the things that we work on with organizations, how to take them to sustainability, and that is our main mandate for the next 3 years, to build capacity. So aid is fizzling out. No, I'm a bangan drama by fail, they can't be without us, they need our poverty. Yeah, not really, no. Just look west, like far west. I'm not going to mention any names, no.
But just look there.
They don't need us, we need each other. So simply, if each one of us rose up, found a cause to work at and worked at it, we would slowly start to change systems. And without looking at each other, but working towards one common goal, we would get there. And I look forward to the day I walk into a technologically advanced Malawi that has moving sidewalks, a train passing through the country,
so many escalators
high-rise building. Who needs escalators when you can get helicopter pads?
All right, Karen, you've just spoken of sustainability.
Yes.
That's quite a challenge, I think, with so many just starting entrepreneurs and those into social enterprises. Maybe just share a few tips on how best we're going to work on that.
When we talk of sustainability, it's not like 100% sustainability, because even America was China trillions. There's always this bilateral, this trade thing going on. The idea is to get to a 50-50, where the entrepreneurs and the organizations we work with are 50% dependent on themselves, 50% aid from outside. So that if money ever fizzled out, they can continue their programs. Malawi has always been at a 60-40 for the longest time, which is very ideal. We make 60% of our own money and 40% from donors. Yeah, there's a mismanagement somewhere there. We've got more than enough money to run this country.
But it seems not to be.
And I am sitting here, not sitting there. I should be quiet. might.
All right.
But the idea is, I'll go back to Cape Town. There's a clothing bank, which in their organization, they receive donation of clothes, like the way Dab would.
Yeah.
And then they sell to the women that they train to go resell in their communities. So they sell at a basic price. Maybe every item is 300 kwacha.
Yeah.
But you know, this is a Gucci bag. So when you go to your community, you sell 5 grand to 10 grand. So that way that keeps that cycle going. And they're 80-20%. They're, I think, the best model in Africa that won several awards, where they're 80% dependent on their own income, 20% is donated because they receive those clothes. So that's where we want to get our organizations, entrepreneurs at. And again, being an entrepreneur in Malawi, where our economy goes this way, that way.
It's always fluctuating.
It's always fluctuating. Being a social enterprise allows you to receive donations for the things you need help for, and allows you to trade where you can carry yourself. So it actually elevates you, like relieves you of the pressure of racking your head to find all the money by yourself. And again, promotes partnerships. If you're a social enterprise helping Anamasie Kwakaoma, and there's a social enterprise helping Anamasie somewhere in rural Scotland, a partnership is born. You can share learning, share products, create markets. It's a comfortable way to become a trade partner, where you don't ignore that we've got social issues, but you're still able to trade. So I feel social enterprising is the future. It's not the solution that will end poverty, but it's one step to get there.
Exactly. Well, as we continue our discussion with Karen Chinkwita Phiri, Executive Director for the Jubilee Enterprise, I believe for so many Malawian youth, there's so much that you can learn from her and as well as from the other guests that we've been able to have on this platform. We're discussing on how we can end poverty, social enterprises. There's so much we can do for our communities. There's so much we can do in the end to develop our country. When we come back from the break, we hear how we're going to close the program and what Karen can share perhaps on how best as youth in the country we can embrace this opportunity. Welcome back to Frontiers as we continue discussing on how we can end poverty. Today we're talking so much on social enterprises. We've seen so many ventures before, perhaps from donor aid from the government through various initiatives to make sure that perhaps Malawians were able to grow out of poverty. But maybe it's quite high time that we move from that thought, that line of thought, and think of how as individuals we can be able to grow and also make partnerships with others. Welcome back, Karen.
Thank you.
You've shown so much interest in developing the individual to be able to make change. What can one Malawian do to stand out and make sure that we have this change?
Well, I'm going to quote Michael Jackson. You have to start with the man in the mirror. They have to stand there and look at themselves and say, okay, let me check myself. Let's be honest. What is my attitude towards what is going on? Is it Zao's Minnesoso? Aboma Sova? You know, what is my attitude? Have I become bitter? Have I let circumstances determine how I'm going to allow my life to become? Because what you think when you wake up every day is what you will do. I believe every day that Malawi is perfect, and the problem is us. So that is the attitude that I wake up with. In our organization, we believe that if we had that capacity, we would be able to make the change that we want to see in the world. So the idea is, what is our attitude? 2, let us stop actively pulling people down when they're doing great change. There are people I don't personally like. Maybe
but you see there's something they're doing.
But there's something that they're doing that is really good. But there are people that we see that we maybe personally don't like. We don't like their values or basi. We don't like the way they dress. Maybe they're from a different tribe. But if you see someone is doing well, cheer for them, celebrate them. And again, if you do not want to be unhappy and jealous and thinking other people have got solutions, exposure is important. That is one thing I feel is pulling the rural communities backward. 1, access to education, access to internet where they could learn for themselves. 3, access to exposure. Nowadays, you don't have to travel to Ghana, to Zambia. There are people that have made simple solutions in their communities. Maga India here. There's a lot of third world technologies that they have come up with. of course not counting our own, which have won awards for the last 2 years globally, beating China, India, and Kenya. But there are third world technologies. For example, just last year, Ugambi won an award. Ugambi is basically kulima using matumba. This lady wanted to have a garden, but her yard was too small, and Zakwa neighbor would come and just eat the vegetables before they were grown. Yeah. So she had this idea of taking an old ladder and hoisting it up and putting the bags on that ladder and growing vegetables on that ladder in the bags. Yeah. She won awards. They call her on programs to teach Ugambi. I'm sure Ugambi, somebody knows it.
I was in Zuzu last week. I saw some people doing it.
Yes. So it's actually called Ugambi. Someone's won awards for that. The reason I feel very comfortable when I wake up in the morning is because I've been to a lot of these awards things. I see what people are awarded for. And I may never be internationally recognized for my Ugambi, but I know that we're okay. Yeah. We're doing what we need to be doing to move forward. Yeah. So, Pena, YouTube, just don't see how to draw eyebrows, you know. Sorry, this was targeted towards girl children. Don't just see how to draw eyebrows. See how perhaps you can sell the art of drawing eyebrows. Yeah. See what else can be done. So exposure is important. Lastly, stop stealing. Nobody benefits by stealing. I don't understand. We have glorified the art of corruption. Nothing rotten is good unless it is compost manure. Stealing is evil. Stealing is bad. There is nothing good about stealing. If we want to glorify corruption, if there's anything acceptable about it, it should be because maybe we come from a chieftainship culture and it was okay to bring a chicken or a goat and we like that. But this whole thing of Nigabeza steals been a baguette, but I'm gonna find a way to steal. Stealing propels nobody forward. It steals your own resources. It's like you're using your money in advance. You burn up at a certain point. And all I would encourage is, as much as you can, be transparent and use money given or donated to you properly. If we're going to be a youth that admires people who steal, we will never get anywhere. Because there's this attitude, Malawi is a taker, will never develop. So when money comes, no. Money is available, it's floating around the world. And there's money for programs in Malawi. But we don't get it because we steal. What are we speaking, thinking, and declaring over ourselves? Things won't change if we don't think or talk different.
Well, Karen, thank you so much for making time to be here on Frontiers. Well, we've learned so much from Karen. Most of it is to harness the potentials that we have. Thank you so much for watching and stay glued to Timveni television. You have been with me, Eselina Kamaliza.